I'm 39 years old and on step 8 of the FOO. Question, would you consider keeping your first home to rent out, then sell it and use the money for the kids' college tuition? So a different take on saving for college. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Okay, so, this is the way they'll answer this. Money is nothing more than a tool that allows you to accomplish the goals that matter to you. And money is fungible, meaning money that you have in one place is still the same money, even if it's taken somewhere and used somewhere else. So there's a few different questions you have to think about. All right, if I have my first home and I've bought that home and maybe I got a great deal on it and maybe I have a low interest rate and it's in a highly desirable area that's going to be easy to rent, it might make sense to rent that. And I can rent that house and I have the low mortgage and I can charge enough rent that it cash flows and so the note's covering itself. So long as I was able to save for a 20% down payment on the second house that I bought on my new primary residence, and I have enough capital, enough income, enough cash flow to be able to cover both mortgages comfortably, I don't think it's crazy if you want to continue to hold the first home and then down the road potentially sell it. Now, there are some tax consequences associated with that, where there are benefits to rental property and there's some deductions you can take there to offset that income. One of the beautiful things about primary residences is that when you do sell them, if you've lived in the home for 2 of the last 5 years, you get to exclude a lot of that gain, up to $250,000 for single individuals, $500,000 for couples. If you turn this property into a rental property and then you just decide to sell it 7, 8, 9 years down the road so that you can pay for college, now rather than you having all that capital appreciation tax-free, you do have to pay capital gain taxes on that because it did become an investment property, investment asset. So I think you have to think through those contingencies as you go about navigating this.
I love that you got, because you went through a lot of the technical stuff that I was sitting there, I was like, I hope we make sure we get the technical, but I want to talk about some of the mindset stuff that I see as a potential trap. First of all, congratulations being on step 8 of the financial order of operations, reaching, to where you're actually living in abundance and you get to think outside of just doing the basics is always something to be celebrated. Mm-hmm. So I'm super happy for you. But the thing I kept thinking about as I'm hearing this is that it's amazing that you've got just primary residence. Sounds like the fact that it's appreciated and gone up. You want it to do everything financially. It's like choose one thing, and then its goal is it's got a
Swiss Army knife.
That's exactly what I wrote down. It's a Swiss Army knife of your financial life, and the fact that it's your primary residence currently. You're going to move out, turn it into rental property, and then voila, you're going to sell it down the road, make so much money that you're going to pay for the kids' college. It sounds great that this one thing, this one asset, is going to do all these great things. But have you actually ever tried to do a home repair with a Swiss Army knife? It sounds so good that all you have to do is whip out this one tool and it is going to help you do this awesome thing. But I always find myself because it has a screwdriver function on it. It has, both a Phillips and then the traditional screwdriver. But if you try to, you're like, dadgummit, this thing isn't the right size. Then I'm stripping out the screws. This stinks. The knife is dull because it's also only about this long, whereas I need something that I can cut a little better. And I end up getting so fed up. And I'm like, this thing would be great, I guess, if I got stuck on a deserted island. I'd be glad I had this Swiss Army knife. But this stinks compared to, I'm just going to go out to my toolbox, my full toolbox. I'm going to get a Phillips screwdriver that actually matches the size of the bit of the screw. I'm also going to just make sure that the knife I have is sharp enough and long enough that it can allow and cut this. And maybe I even need scissors instead of this feature, and scissors that aren't just this big like the Swiss Army knife scissors. So I end up getting so frustrated because it doesn't, that one thing just, even though it on the brochure it will do all these 12 features, it doesn't do any of them good. And that's kind of what I feel like you're doing here, is that your primary residence sounds like it potentially could do these things, but is it the best? And because I don't think it is necessarily, because you have a choice. Let's take the primary residence. You do have a choice: rent it out or sell it. Bo gave you, if you sell it, there's some huge tax benefits, meaning tax-free gains for a married couple up to $500,000. Yep. That's nothing to sleep on. And by the way, you can still do both, because you can rent it out for like 2 or 3 years, and as long as you sell it, because it's 2 out of the last 5 years that it was your primary residence, you could rent it out for a few years, see how that goes, and then still sell it for the tax-free gain. So you can kind of have choose your own adventure. But then when it comes to kids' college, I love 529 accounts. I mean, because they're tax-free growth. It's another way to get tax-free growth. And if you did this instead of relying on one asset, if you actually went to the full toolbox of your financial tools, you could be like, maybe I take advantage of doing rental, but then I also take advantage of taking this tax-free gains. And then maybe I'm also in the background funding a 529 account for these kids so that I get tax-free growth. Do you see how all of a sudden this got a lot better instead of just using one tool and hoping that it fixes all your financial problems? Specializing and maximizing is definitely going to be your friend in this adventure.